All right, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Mark chapter 7.
Okay.
You know, a lot of our listeners have shared this passage with us.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It's kind of a mix of teachings and then a couple of Jesus's healing miracles.
Right.
All centered around this theme of purity.
Yeah, purity is kind of a big theme in a lot of the Gospels, but I think especially Mark 7, it really digs into what truly defiles a person according to Jesus and sets up this fascinating contrast between the more traditional views of ritual purity and Jesus's emphasis on internal transformation.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of dropped right into this confrontation. You know, the beginning of Mark 7, the Pharisees are challenging Jesus' disciples for eating with unwashed hands.
Yeah.
Now, I know that, the Pharisees were all about ritual purity.
Right.
But their reaction here just seems a bit extreme.
Well, yeah, it wasn't just about like a random rule to them.
Right.
This whole hand washing thing was rooted in this tradition of the elders.
Okay.
Which they held in very high regard. They believed that all these detailed rituals that were passed down through generations were absolutely crucial for maintaining holiness and pleasing God.
So they're fixated on these outward actions, but Jesus kind of sees right through that.
Yeah.
He calls them out. He quotes Isaiah, and he says they're honoring God with their lips, but not their hearts.
It's a pretty sharp rebuke.
Yeah.
And he doesn't stop there.
No, he doesn't.
He goes on to illustrate this with the whole Corban controversy.
Yeah, now, Corban, that was new to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like they were using this vow to dedicate possessions to God as a way to get out of taking care of their family.
That's the gist of it, yeah.
Really?
So someone could declare their property Corban,
Okay.
meaning dedicated to God.
Right.
And then use that as an excuse to avoid supporting their elderly parents.
Wow.
Even if those parents were struggling.
That seems to twist the whole idea of honoring your parents, which is a fundamental commandment.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where Jesus's point about hypocrisy comes in. Yeah. He's showing how prioritizing these man-made traditions can not only lead to legalistic loopholes, but can actually contradict the very heart of God's commandments.
Right.
It's highlighting the danger of focusing on outward rituals while neglecting the weightier matters of justice, mercy, and faithfulness.
So it's not just about hand washing.
No.
It's about this much deeper issue of what truly defiles a person.
Right.
And this is where Jesus makes that really radical statement.
Yeah.
There is nothing outside of a person that can defile him by going into him. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles him.
This is a revolutionary teaching. He's saying it's not the food we eat or the rituals we perform that make us unclean, but the evil that originates from within our hearts.
And he gets pretty specific.
He does.
About what those inner evils are. Evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness.
It's a pretty comprehensive list.
Yeah, it is.
Covering a wide range of human vices.
Right.
And it forces us to confront the reality that true impurity comes from within. It challenges us to examine our own hearts and motivations to root out the darkness that can fester there.
It's a complete shift in focus from external actions to internal transformation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we see this shift play out in a couple of healing stories.
Right.
Starting with this Syrophoenician woman who comes to Jesus, begging him to heal her daughter.
This story is particularly striking because the woman is a Gentile, considered an outsider in Jewish society.
Right.
And Jesus' initial response to her seems quite harsh.
Yeah.
He compares Gentiles to dogs who are not worthy of the children's bread.
That's a tough image.
It is a tough image.
But the woman doesn't back down.
No, she doesn't.
She cleverly retorts that even dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the table.
Her response is both witty and profound.
Yeah.
She acknowledges the social hierarchy
Right.
while also asserting her own dignity and faith.
Oh.
She's essentially saying, even if I'm just a dog, I believe you have enough compassion to share a crumb of your healing power.
Wow.
And Jesus is clearly impressed by her persistence and faith.
Yeah.
He grants her request.
He does.
Demonstrating that his compassion extends beyond the boundaries of Jewish society.
This healing is more than just a physical miracle, isn't it?
It's not just a physical miracle.
It's a symbolic act that challenges the prejudices and divisions of the time.
Yes. It's a sign that God's grace is available to all who seek it, regardless of their social standing or religious background.
It seems like this encounter with the Syrophoenician woman echoes Jesus' earlier teaching about true defilement.
It does.
It's not about external labels or social categories,
Right.
but about the state of our hearts.
Exactly. And this theme of breaking down barriers and opening ourselves to truth is further emphasized in the next healing story
Okay.
we encounter in Mark 7.
This time, it's the healing of a deaf man
Yes,
with a speech impediment.
that's right.
And the details of the healing are interesting. They are, yeah.
Jesus takes him aside, puts his fingers in his ears, spits, touches his tongue, and says, Ephatha, which means, be opened.
There's a real physicality to this miracle.
Yeah.
It's almost like Jesus is using these actions to break through the man's physical barriers and open him up to the world.
And it works.
It does.
The man's ears are opened, his speech is restored, and he can speak plainly.
Right.
It's a powerful moment that seems to have a symbolic significance
Yeah.
beyond just the physical healing.
Yes, it speaks to the power of Jesus to break down the barriers that prevent us from hearing and speaking truth. It's a reminder that sometimes we need to be opened up in order to fully experience the transforming power of God's grace.
And I think that sets the stage perfectly for the next part of our deep dive, where we'll see another remarkable instance of Jesus' healing power, this time on a much larger scale. But we'll save that for part 2. Sounds good. Picking up where we left off in Mark, we move from these kind of smaller, more intimate acts of healing to a scene with a much larger crowd. I mean, Jesus was constantly surrounded by people seeking his teachings and miracles.
Yeah, those crowds were huge.
Oh yeah, they were massive.
So what's the context for this next miracle?
Well, after several days of teaching and healing, Jesus and his disciples find themselves in this remote area with this massive crowd, and everybody is hungry and there's no food in sight.
Oh no.
Yeah, the disciples are worried.
Understandably.
Yeah, but Jesus, being Jesus, being moved with compassion, doesn't want to send these people away hungry.
Right.
So he asks his disciples, how much food do we have?
I'm guessing it wasn't a lot.
No, not much at all. Just 7 loaves of bread and a few small fish.
Okay.
Hardly enough to feed a small family, let alone thousands of people.
Okay, this is starting to sound familiar.
Yeah.
Is this where Jesus pulls off another one of his famous feeding miracles?
It is. It's just as astonishing as that feeding of the 5,000 we see in other Gospels. Right.
He takes this meager amount of food, gives thanks to God, breaks it, and somehow, miraculously, there's enough to feed everyone with baskets of leftovers.
It's incredible. I mean, these miracles are so powerful, but I'm always curious about the deeper significance.
Right.
What do they hold? What do they tell us?
That's a great question, and I think if we look beyond the spectacle of the miracle itself, we see them pointing to Jesus' true identity and mission. He's not just a wise teacher or a miracle worker. He's the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come to save humanity from sin and its consequences.
So these miracles aren't just these isolated events.
No.
They're kind of like signs pointing to something much bigger.
They are.
Yeah.
They're revealing who Jesus really is and what he came to do.
Okay.
And for those who are open to seeing and hearing the truth, these miracles were powerful confirmations of his divine authority and his message of love and redemption.
That raises another interesting question.
If these miracles were so amazing, why did some people still doubt Jesus?
Yeah, it's a question that Mark kind of explores throughout his gospel.
Okay.
Even after witnessing these incredible acts, some people remain skeptical.
Wow.
They clung to their own agendas, their own interpretations, and ultimately rejected Jesus and his message.
It's almost like they were blinded by their own biases and preconceived notions.
Yeah, and it highlights the complex nature of faith. You know, faith isn't just about seeing miracles.
Okay.
It's about choosing to believe, choosing to trust, to surrender to something greater than ourselves.
So even in the face of overwhelming evidence, the choice to believe ultimately rests with each individual.
That's right.
That's a pretty powerful message.
It is.
It makes me wonder how we can even cultivate that kind of faith today.
It's a journey, not a destination. It requires humility, a willingness to learn and grow, and a constant openness to the promptings of the Spirit. We need to be willing to examine our own hearts, confront our own biases, and allow ourselves to be transformed by God's grace.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about blind faith.
Right.
It's about this active seeking of truth.
Yes.
And allowing ourselves to be changed by it.
Absolutely. And it's not always easy.
Yeah.
There will be times when we doubt, when we struggle, when we feel lost. But even in those moments, we can choose to hold on to hope. To trust that God is working in our lives even when we can't see it.
So you're saying that even when we don't see like spectacular miracles in our lives, God is still working
He is.
in these more subtle ways.
That's right, inviting us to trust him.
Inviting us to trust him.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us back to the central theme of Mark 7.
Okay.
This idea of what truly defiles a person.
Right.
It's a call to examine our inner lives, to confront the things that separate us from God and from each other.
So what are some practical ways that we can even apply these lessons from Mark 7 and 8 to our own lives today?
Well, for starters, I think we can ask ourselves, what are the traditions of the elders that we might be clinging to? What are the external rules or rituals that we prioritize over genuine love and compassion? Are we more concerned with appearances than with the state of our own hearts?
Those are great questions.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in outward appearances.
It is.
And forget about what truly matters.
Absolutely.
And speaking of getting caught up, those who rejected Jesus seem to be so focused on their own interpretations.
Right.
How can we make sure that we're open to the truth,
Yeah.
even if it challenges our current understanding?
That's a crucial point. I think we need to be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Okay.
Be open to new perspectives.
Right.
To allow our understanding of God and faith to grow and evolve.
Okay.
We need to remember that we don't have all the answers, and that's okay.
Right. Humility is key.
Humility and a willingness to learn. That seems like a good starting point.
It is.
And maybe that openness will help us recognize those ways that God is working in our lives, even when we don't see those big flashy miracles.
Exactly. And that leads us to another crucial question. Do we believe that God can heal, restore, and provide for us, even in seemingly impossible situations?
That's something I think we all struggle with.
We do.
From time to time.
Yeah.
Especially when we're facing difficult circumstances.
It's easy to doubt.
Yeah.
But, faith is not the absence of doubt.
Good. Okay.
It's the choice to trust God even when we don't fully understand. It's about choosing to believe in his goodness, his love, his power, even when we can't see the way forward.
So it's about cultivating this posture of trust.
Yes.
Surrender. Allowing ourselves to be led by something greater than ourselves.
Precisely. And as we do that, as we open ourselves to God's transforming power,
right,
we'll begin to experience his miracles in our own lives.
Maybe not in the form of multiplying food or instantly healing the sick.
Right.
But in subtle yet profound ways that shape our hearts, our relationships, our very beings.
So it's about recognizing those miracles that are already happening all around us.
Yes.
The everyday blessings.
Yeah.
That we often take for granted.
Exactly. The beauty of a sunrise, the laughter of a child, the unexpected kindness of a stranger. These are all glimpses of God's grace, his love, his presence in our lives.
And as we learn to see those miracles, appreciate them, be grateful for them, our faith will grow stronger.
Absolutely.
And we'll be better equipped to face whatever challenges come our way.
That's right.
It sounds like the kind of transformation Jesus was talking about in Mark 7.
It is.
This inner change that then ripples outward.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a journey of faith, a lifelong process of transformation. And it all starts with opening our hearts to the truth, to the possibility of the miraculous, to the love that God has for each and every one of us.
Wow. This deep dive into Mark 7 and 8 has been really thought-provoking.
Yeah.
We started with this seemingly simple issue of hand washing.
Right.
And it's really opened up this whole exploration of purity and tradition and hypocrisy and the true nature of faith.
It's fascinating how these ancient texts can still resonate so deeply with us today. The themes that we've been unpacking are just as relevant in the 21st century as they were back then.
Absolutely. And one thing that really struck me was just how Jesus consistently challenges the status quo.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from confronting hypocrisy.
No, he doesn't.
Even when it's from those in religious authority.
It's a consistent theme throughout the Gospels.
Yeah.
He's constantly pushing people to look beyond the surface.
Right.
To question their assumptions and to confront their own prejudices.
Right.
It can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's also incredibly liberating.
It's like he's saying, don't just blindly follow the rules.
Right.
Engage your heart, your mind, your soul.
Yeah.
And that message really transcends time and culture.
It does. We live in a world that's still grappling with hypocrisy,
Yeah.
prejudice, and blind adherence to tradition.
Right.
we need to be asking ourselves those same tough questions that Jesus posed.
Yeah.
What truly defiles us? What are we prioritizing over love and compassion? Are we truly open to God's transforming power in our lives?
Those are big questions.
They are big questions.
And I think Mark 7 gives us some clues for where to start looking.
Yeah.
Remember that list of things that defile a person.
Yes.
Evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness.
It's a pretty comprehensive list.
It is.
And it's not just about outward actions. It's about the inner attitudes and motivations that drive those actions.
It's about the state of our hearts.
Yeah.
The things that we allow to take root and grow within us.
And, you know, if we're honest with ourselves,
Yeah.
we can probably all find something on that list that resonates with us.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've all struggled with selfishness, envy, anger, judgment.
Right.
We've all harbored thoughts and desires that we're not proud of.
It's like a mirror
It is.
reflecting our shared humanity, our brokenness.
Yeah. But thankfully, Jesus doesn't just leave us with a list of our failings.
Right.
He offers us hope, forgiveness, and the power to change.
Right. The good news of the gospel is that it's not about earning our way to God
It's not.
through perfect behavior or strict adherence to rules.
No, it's about recognizing our need for a savior, for someone who can cleanse us from within, transform our hearts, and make us new.
So it's not about striving for perfection.
No.
It's about surrendering to grace.
Exactly. It's about letting go of our self-righteousness, our pride, our need to be in control, and allowing God to work in us, to shape us, to mold us into the people he created us to be.
Wow, this has been such a rich conversation.
It has.
You know, unpacking so much from just a couple chapters in Mark.
Yeah.
You know, we've covered ritual purity and hypocrisy, the nature of true faith, the power of miracles, and the things that defile a person.
It's a testament to the enduring power of Scripture.
Right.
You know, the Bible isn't just some ancient history book. It's a living, breathing text that speaks to the deepest longings of our hearts. It's a guidebook for life.
Right.
A source of wisdom, comfort, and hope.
And as we wrap up,
Yeah.
I'm left with this one lingering question. If Jesus were to list the things that defile people today, what might he add to that list for Mark 7? What are the modern-day equivalents of those ancient evils?
That's a great question to ponder, and I think it's one that each of us needs to wrestle with individually.
Yeah.
What are the things that are polluting our hearts, our minds, our souls in today's world?
Right.
Is it the constant barrage of negativity and outrage on social media? The obsession with material possessions and status? The fear and anxiety that grips so many of us? I don't have all the answers, but it's a question worth asking.
Yeah, it's a question that can lead to some uncomfortable but ultimately transformative self-reflection.
Absolutely.
So, as you go about your day, I encourage you to keep this question in mind. What are the things that are defiling me? What are the things that I need to let go of to experience true purity, true freedom, true life? Until next time, keep diving deep and keep seeking truth.